I think it's only fair he sits there and does that because he's as much part of this as I am. So Rebecca had seen a little bit of some of our Hedgehogs footage, went, can you come and do 5 minutes? So here we are. We live in Hampton, and it sounds like a confession. We have hedgehogs in our garden. And the history of this, you said, how do you know? Well, honestly, it's a bit of luck, really. We moved into our house in Hampton in 2000, so we've been there almost 23 years, and we saw a hedgehog within the first couple of years, and then that was it. No sign of sound for ages, not until June 2020. Now, it's possible in that time they were around, but we just don't know. But in June 2020, there we were, sort of emerging from the first lockdown, and I was on a Teams call with a colleague who lives in Monsey, and she was incredibly excited because one of her children had spotted a hedgehog in our garden. And I think if it hadn't been for that conversation, it wouldn't have been on my radar. And I was walking around our garden, and I looked down and I thought, what's that? I thought to myself. I thought, that's not from the cats, that's not fox. So I channeled my inner Chris Packham and I googled hedgehog food. And up popped almost identical photograph to that. And I just couldn't believe it. And then a few days later, I was looking down the garden at dusk, and I just saw them running along. And in fact, I think to be fair to say, John was really sceptical. He was like, yeah, you've seen a hedgehog. And then about 3 days later, there it was again. And we both saw it on that occasion. So it was remarkable, we told a few people, but to be honest, at that stage, we didn't really do a great deal. But then, if you cast your mind back to sort of 2020 and those garden meetups you did because you weren't allowed to meet friends indoors and so forth, and some friends brought over some hedgehog food they'd been given. So we thought, let's put it out in a dish and see what happens. And that's what happened. Virtually the first night, we had a hedgehog out in the garden at dusk, eating the food we put out. So your mind starts ticking away then. It's like, well, where are they coming from? Do they live in the garden? We've never found one around. And in fact, that last question, do they live in the garden, we still don't really know the answer to, if I'm honest. Where they come and go from is a little clearer. Because we soon began to realise that they were moving between our garden and our neighbours, as you can see on there. So what we've done, talk about connecting gardens, and you may have seen those little plaques about building a hedgehog highway and cutting a hole in your fence. We actually, because there was already a little scraped hole, we actually made what you might call a bit of a hedgehog subway. But we also started to notice that the hedgehogs would arrive with different marks on their, sort of scrapey marks on their spines and things. And we began to deduce from that they were squeezing their way into the garden through a number of different routes. And so we put the camera on the back gate. And as you can see from that, there is happily pushing its way through a really very small hole in the wiring on the back gate. And we also put it one night in front of the front gate. And sure enough, here is a very, very determined little hedgehog, moving very quickly as well, just to show you how fast they can move, determinedly coming through from the front garden through. So they're coming in all directions. So you'll notice already I've mentioned a couple of cameras. Now I warn you, if you get into hedgehogs, and like us, you've been married for nearly 30 years and you're running out of present ideas, it spawns a lot of gifts. We now are the proud owners of 2 types of camera, several hedgehog books, a whole house that no one, I'm afraid, seems to live in. But the really good thing about the cameras is sometimes you just get more than you bargained for. I mean, there are a lot of questions about hedgehog population stuff now. Well, we were amazed when we put the camera out initially, in those was reading in 2021, that we've got at least 4 hedgehogs in the garden simultaneously at various times So we've discovered a lot. We've also learned quite a lot about what to feed them. So having done a bit of research and listened to various podcasts and things, we learned that hedgehogs only have small mouths. So small food, things like kitten biscuit, is key. So rather than branded hedgehog food, I mean, I'm afraid I've got Tesco best kitten biscuit. But also I think about putting things like kibble out. I think it doesn't go off in hot weather, and you're probably less likely to attract rats and things. Although we do have a clever magpie who takes the biscuit and dunks it in water to soften it up. We've learned about the importance of water. They drink a huge amount every night. They will go to and fro between the food bowl and the water bowl for hours on end. So, if nothing else, I would say just a plastic dish or an old saucer or something, always put water out in your garden. We've also learnt a bit about hibernation, or lack of. The first year before we had the cameras, we naively assumed that they, come November, it gone cold, we didn't see any sign, the food got left one night, we thought that's it, they've hibernated. But since we've had the cameras, we realised that wasn't the case, and in fact, we've seen them come out during hibernation at times and look around like, where's the food tonight? And we've actually said Merry Christmas now to them on 2 occasions, both last year and this year. And 2 years in a row, they've eventually hibernated around about the 9th of January. Last year, during February and into early March, they were in and out. They go away for a week, they come back. This year, we've not seen sight or sound since the 9th of January. So I'm touching wood on the stand here that they haven't suddenly vanished. Because it will stand up here totally back and there's something. Somebody asked about predators. We've had our heart-stopping fox moment. We weren't sure what was going to happen here. I was literally like this, dare I look? But as you'll see, the foxes learn that, I think a fox would want to be really, really hungry to eat a hedgehog, or maybe, as Chris said, go for the young potentially, but they do seem to be able to coexist. We've seen them literally side by side, eating away. We also get an extraordinary insight, I suppose, into that world. I don't know, Chris isn't here to comment, but anyone who knows about the hedgehogs, wait for this one, we assume that this is 2 males during the breeding season, where things get, frankly, a little feisty. And to be honest, the hedgehog rut is as entertaining as a red deer any day. And we've also had them being a little amorous as well. And we have got this behaviour where they're courting in the spring. Again, this will go on for 2 or 3 hours a night. So the following morning you'll watching footage, going round and round and round. And as I mentioned to a few people this evening, I've not included the X-rated video. So, just before we finish though, we thought we would include on here the Hedgehog Street's top 10 tips for hedgehogs in your garden and making them friendly, because this is a really, really neat summary, very similar to what Chris had as well. It's frankly about being a bit untidy and being careful. Don't abandon that strimmer, don't light bonfires, all of those sort of things. Don't. I'm sure none of you would use those horrible bird food things in nets anyhow, anything like that. But really, just open up your garden, leave nice hiding holes around for them, and keep an eye out. Because frankly, we didn't know they were there. It was luck, and you just don't know. So thank you.